Anti-War Bands by Garrett, Quaylen, Katie, Simon, and Alex. Robert Allen Zimmerman was born on May 4th, 1941 in Duluth, Minnesota. He later then changed his name to Bob Dylan. He's an American singer and songwriter that had a major impact on rock and roll and popular music. As a singer, songwriter, and musician, he changed the outlook on music by electrifying folk rock. He grew up learning how to play guitar and harmonica as a child and later formed a band in high school called the Golden Chords. After graduation, he went on to college at the University of Minnesota, where he performed in coffeehouses and went by the name of Bob Dylan that he took from the poet Dylan Thomas. Being inspired by Little Richard, Hank Williams, and Woody Guthrie, Dylan started listening to the blues, and this was the genre that stimulated his music. Bob Dylan wrote many good songs, but his songs Blowing in the Wind and Masters of War, which were released in 1963 in the album The Freewheelin' Bob Dylan, and the song With God on Our Side, which was released in 1964 in the album The Times They Are Changing, were thought to be protest songs about peace, freedom, and war. These songs had a major impact on not only Americans during this time, but had a huge impact on people all over the world that listened to his music during the Vietnam and Cold War. Now on to the Scorpions. The Scorpions originated in Hanover, Germany by Rudolf Schnecker in 1965. The original members of the band were Rudolf Schnecker, guitarist and vocalist, Karl-Heinz Fulmer, the lead guitarist, Lothar Hemberg, the bassist, and Wolfgang Dizzoni, the drummer. Members within the band changed many times. The only real constant member was Rudolf Schnecker. In 1972, the band released the album Lonesome Crow, produced by Connie Plank in Hamburg. Here was the start of the recognizable sound that the Scorpions would be known for. An uncompromising and guitar-oriented hard rock similar to the 1960s artists Jimi Hendrix, Cream, and Led Zeppelin. The recognizable sound came from the combination of two electric guitars, with energetic solos and powerful riffs. Not to mention the distinctive voice of the singer, Klaus Meine. When the 1980s came, the band began to experience commercial successes with albums including Magnetism, Blackout, Love at First Sting, and so on, until the 1990s. The best-selling album for the band was Crazy World in 1990, which included the song Wind of Change. The inspiration behind this song was upon visiting Moscow, Russia, and playing in the Moscow Music Peace Festival. The band felt the Russians cheering them on even though they were German. This song, known to be the basic theme song for the destruction and removal of the Berlin Wall. The song celebrated the political change happening in Eastern Europe in the late 1980s and early 1990s and the fall of the Berlin Wall. Even though the song wasn't specifically written about the Berlin Wall, the song had a poetic foreshadowing. The Berlin Wall represented oppressive power exerted by the government and poverty behind what was known as the Iron Curtain. The song discusses reunification and peace at a time that was associated with the Cold War and communism. All this was finally over. Now on to Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath originated in Birmingham, England when Ozzy Osbourne, Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward met and began creating music. They began by playing music that somewhat aligned with psychedelic music under their original band's name, Earth Blues Company, or just Earth. After having dabbled with the black arts, and one night after having a nightmare inspired by his activities, Butler approached the band with ideas for a new album. Upon release of the new album, the band rebranded itself to Black Sabbath and their popularity took off. The successful album Paranoid, which was released in 1970, opened with the song War Pigs. The whole song is often labeled on albums as War Pigs Lookswall, which is now considered an anti-war classic. Butler, one of the main writers of the song, has often said the song is specifically about the Vietnam War and uses the song to describe war as something entirely evil. The song War Pigs outlines the hypocrisy of war and how the rich start wars for the poor to go and die in. The sixth song on the album, Hand of Doom, more loosely dealt with war and viewing the effects that war had on the soldiers that went through it. On later albums, Children of the Grave, a song aimed at the Cold War, continued War Pigs' anti-war sentiment while incorporating some of Butler's pacifist ideals. These bands and artists of different cultures and backgrounds were selected under the primes that each band had themes of anti-war or peace in their music, and also because of their extreme popularity. All of these bands wrote about war in their career because they were all down-to-earth bands. either through their lyrics or through their tone. Bob Dylan was a brilliant lyricist who wrote lyrics that were often sorrowful and eerie, exposing the problems of the world. Similarly, Black Sabbath, having come from a great industrial area of Birmingham, grew tired of their time's version of rock and roll that preached peace and love, and instead gave their music a heavy, dark, and eerie tone so that they could be more relatable to the real world. Though the mood of the Scorpions songs was not as sad or eerie as a whole as the other bands, their music was still very much real as they were written from the band's experiences wherever they went. Because of this, as the Berlin Wall fell, it was only natural for much of the music following to be progressive, peaceful, and anti war. All of these bands' popularity can be attributed to their genius and their virtuosity paired with the authentic feeling of their already relatable music by the fact that all the faces of the band, the singers, were imperfect in some way. Bob Dylan with his rough, raw voice and straight bass, Ozzy with his raw voice as well as his spontaneous character, and the Scorpions through their lead singer who has been described as ugly. Their authentic flaws made them iconic and memorable throughout time. Each band has also been very musically and or lyrically inclined and a songwriting powerhouse. Bob Dylan was a poet with works such as Like a Rolling Stone. His quality was overwhelming. Black Sabbath could meet his quality between the four of them. They all contributed each of their musical virtuosity to their songs as needed to speedily produce many quality and musical songs. And lastly, the Scorpions' virtuosity and musical intellect allowed them to fine tune their sound to optimally entertain a specific audience, such as Heavier for America, Faster in Europe, etc. Thank you for watching.